Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a man raised by the poetry of Robert James Ritchie, better known as Kid Rock, my brother Mike.
Yeah, ba with the ba, I tell you. Those words saved my life.
Those words saved your life. Where on your body do you have tattooed the phrase, get in the pit and try and love someone? Where's that written on your body?
A gentleman never asks and a lady never tells.
All right.
What can I say?
Oh, we've already started off
we all have
exactly
our
how
own. I think we all have our own connection. Everybody our age has a different connection to Sir Kid Rock. Okay,
he has been knighted. So
yeah. Hopefully it's not like a gross connection because he probably got some stuff. Some stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right, so
several of our listeners are his children, illegitimate, and so that's okay. Good for you, Rob. Good job out there. On this week's episode, we are going to talk about the Kansas City Royals a little bit too. First, we're going to reflect on the penultimate week of Cactus League play. Penultimate, I know. I wanted to break out a fancy word. I wanted to break out a fancy word. I'm feeling fancy.
Give me a second to get the dictionary out. Yikes.
That just means the week of baseball that is the next to last. Penultimate just means the next to last. So we're also going to identify some potential surprises for the 2025 season. Our crystal balls are now repaired, and so we're gonna anticipate those surprises ahead of time. And then we're going to pick out a few players we want to see take off in the final week of Cactus League play, which is coming up this next week. I do, before we get really started, have to remind you it is now the perfect time to subscribe to the Royals Weekly Substack. We are really close to the start of the regular season. It's only $5 a month. You're going to get an extra episode every week. You're going to get 2 extra episodes every week once the season starts. You're going to get a written piece every week. Today I did a deep dive on Vinny Pasquantino and what his role needs to be and some of the changes I think he's made that he shouldn't have made and all those sorts of things. It's a very interesting thing. And I did a little thing on Frank Mazzucato in the spring breakout game. And so a lot of cool content on that Substack. Make sure you're subscribing. $5 a month. It's royalsweekly.substack.com. You will really, really appreciate it. Mike, you just sit there. I'll read the ad copy. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all things the madness. Somebody decided to call it the madness.
The madness today.
And all things
really
the madness
today.
Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds and everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and, of course, every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Let's start the review of last week. We don't have necessarily roster news, but I feel like we have to talk about an injury that occurred. Mike, Bobby Witt Jr. got hit by a pitch. He was hitting the left forearm. They were worried it might have caused a break. They did x-rays. X-rays were negative. He did have a left forearm contusion and sat out a few days, but is now back playing. What are your thoughts on that whole Bobby Witt Jr. saga?
Boy, I tell you, it got my blood up. It got me in the anger zone. I almost let the rage monkey out of the rage cage. And I almost crapped my pants because the season is over if he goes down for an extended period of time. So thanks, Zorpy's okay. I probably would have held him out for another day or two, honestly. Just to be honest, because was he wearing a little extra padding on that forearm when he came back? If you got to do that and you're Bobby Witt Jr., I'm just keeping you out. Keeping you out. You may also notice he slid feet first on a steal attempt in that first game he came back. And Bobby Witt Jr. is not really a feet first sliding kind of guy. So I wonder if that was like, hey, for now, let's just slide feet first and not expose that wrist and forearm to anything. But yeah, I would thank all the heavens that he is back in there. And it was very scary for that short period of time. I didn't see it, obviously, because the game wasn't on TV, but
I did.
Did you?
I still saw it. Yeah. You know how the games aren't on TV, but sometimes they'll still have clips of them. I saw a clip of him getting hit. It looked like it hurt like hell. And so,
it was 96 or something, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. It was thrown pretty hard. You say you almost crapped your pants. I say almost. Give me one ticket to Browntown over here. Because I was like, and then immediately started going into an analytical mindset that was like, well, exactly how much of the team's value is Bobby Witt Jr.? Exactly how much
you do not want to ask that question because it's way too high.
And I went and I looked it up. So I did the research. I do my own research.
Good.
So I did the research. And so he was worth 10.4 wins above replacement as judged by Fangraphs last year. The entire Royals position players total were worth 20. So he was worth more than half of their entire position player value last year. More than half by himself.
Yeah, I think I looked that up actually at the end of last year, and I was looking at the exact same thing. But it's just oof, especially kicking off a season. Imagine the scramble you would be in a week, 2 weeks out from the regular season, and the guy who's worth half of your value goes down for at least a month, probably more like 6 to 8 weeks. Yeesh.
Yeah. Thank you, Zorp, for not bringing that down upon us. We would have really been sad. On the field last week, the Royals went 5-3, bringing their overall record to 15-9. They ended up getting wins against the Rockies, Reds, Angels, Padres, and Mariners, and took losses to the Guardians twice and the Diamondbacks. The Royals prospects also lost to the Diamondbacks prospects in their spring breakout game matchup. Mike, what are your takeaways from last week in the Cactus League?
You know, it was a good week, I guess, of wins-wise, but that doesn't really matter. But I have been pretty happy with what I've seen from the guys we anticipate being regulars in there. Right now, I'm really looking more at pitching, and I've seen some good stuff this past week from Cole Reagans, from Chris Bubich.
Not Cole Reagans today.
Oh, I didn't really watch today. What did he do it today?
Today, he had to be taken out of 3 separate innings early and brought back in. And
Whoa!
So he only gave up 2 runs that I saw. But he was very pitch inefficient. His command was very bad.
Yeah, and that's what I figured. If he gets taken out like that, it's got to be a command thing. But overall, I've been really happy with what I've seen. So, let's get to the real stuff.
Yeah, we really need to hurry up and get there. The starting pitching is actually scaring me just a little bit, but it is Arizona, and we're right in that window when
you get to watch Bubich's start though?
Yeah, he was good. I liked the way that he pitched.
I was
he was
really
good.
Happy with how he did.
It was Reagan's. It was Waka's last start that really got to me. I watched that one and I was like, "Eesh, he is getting hit hard and a lot." And I'll talk a little bit more about him later. But I think we're just in that period where we're right where hitters start to like really catch up to the pitchers, and the environment of Arizona is playing in their favor. And so they just start hitting balls out that wouldn't normally go out places, or, all this sort of stuff. All that resets when the regular season gets here and everybody goes back to their cold weather place. And it's not 75, 80 degrees, thin air and all this sort of stuff. You go back to playing in Kansas City, it's a whole different ballgame. And so the pitching has scared me just a little bit this last week, but I know not to get too worried about what's happening in spring training. We do have to talk a little bit about the spring breakout game because it was so fun and I enjoy watching it so much. Mike, who stood out to you from that spring breakout game?
Well, I only got to watch like this extended highlight thing. Where did you watch it? Is it on MLB.TV?
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. Okay, I'll go back and look and we'll watch it tonight. But from that 10-minute clip or whatever it was, and this is something I read about actually. Frank Mazzucato, increase in velocity. Our buddy Preston Farr put something out on that. After the
I
game
also
was
put
over.
something out on that.
Was that today?
Substack post.
In today's Substack?
So go ahead and read that.
But sitting 92, 93, touching 94, that's good. That's a positive step for Mazzucato and something that we needed to see. He did get hit around a little bit, but if he can control that fastball, what?
He gave up one hit.
He also let a guy on though, didn't he?
He walked a guy too.
Yeah. So those are kind of the things that the walks are a little scary for me and have been an issue in the past. So if he can tame that thing a little bit more, show the really good curveball. I'm excited there for Frank Mazzucato. Carter Jensen had a really good at bat. I did get to see that whole at bat. He was up 3-0, hit a really hard single through the right side. That was good to see. Noah Cameron. I thought the box score was worse than the actual performance itself. A little bit uncharacteristically walks a guy in that first inning, I think, and then it kind of comes
walks.
Yeah, what is that? What was that?
That's unusual for him.
And so it kind of unraveled from that. But I did think that there was some good stuff in there. I really think he had trouble locating the changeup was the big problem. He was leaving it up, and guys were drilling it a little bit. So we're not worried about that.
He wasn't getting strikes that he would have otherwise gotten on that changeup. And so he would get, a lot of times he was throwing it in like fastball counts to get ahead of guys, and it wasn't landing in the strike zone. And so he was like, oh, well, now I'm down or I'm behind or something like that. And it just, he was having trouble locating that changeup.
What did you think? You got to watch the whole thing. What did you think?
Well, the most important big takeaway from spring breakout is, of course, Frank Mazzucato. That was like Twitter lit up with it for a minute. Like everybody was like, this is incredible. And I watched him and he looked like a dude ready for AA, right? Like, which is great.
That's good to hear.
Because, I mean, I think I ran the numbers today. He got, so bad at remembering stuff. I want to say he got 3 whiffs just on the fastball. He threw 15 fastballs, 8 swings, 3
that's
whiffs.
A lot for him. Like
I know he threw like 70% fastballs, which makes a little bit of sense because he's
working on it.
Well, yeah, but also he didn't come in with like the major league guys. Like he wasn't invited to major league spring training, and so they start later, and so he's later in his progression. So he's going to be using the fastball more than he is, say, his curveball. And he only threw 2 curveballs out of the 23 pitches he threw. But he got a bunch of whiffs, bunch of swing and miss with all the pitches he was throwing. Slider, sinker, 4-seam. And so the performance overall just looked really much more sophisticated than Mazzucato has ever looked when I've seen him pitch in the minor leagues. And it's because 2 things, I think. One, obviously the fastball velo matters. But I think that velo also gives him more confidence that he can try and throw that fastball in the strike zone more. 23 pitches. He had a 61% strike rate. He threw 14 strikes in 23 pitches. That's pretty good for him.
Yeah.
And these are against guys who are mostly, for the most part, older than him. Because if you're on that spring breakout roster, the odds are you're either a really, really good prospect generally, or you're just a little bit older.
Well, yeah, and I'm assuming for Arizona, like us, a lot of those guys are in major league camp. About half the guys we put out there are in major league camp. So
exactly. So he's not facing just anybody out there. He pitched well for 2 innings against some really good players, some really good prospects. And so I think that did a lot to make people feel better about Mazzucato and remember, still just 21 years old, still has time. Pitchers often don't develop till later. But it was great to see that from him. I'm actually talking the person I picked to talk about standing out to me is Spencer Nivens. I thought he had a couple of really quality plate appearances. One of them, I know he took a walk. I think he was ahead in the other one. He might have taken a walk in both of them. I can't remember the stats, but just watching him take plate appearances, I was like, okay, I am impressed by what I'm seeing. It looks sophisticated from Nivens. You can see why he gets pitches to hit that he wants to hammer, because he sort of forces the pitcher to throw him pitches in those places. And so the approach looks good from him. We saw him hit, I think, 1 or 2 home runs for Major League spring training this year. And so, I'm very excited and interested to see if you listen to our midweek episode, which I did solo this last week because Mike was sick. I put him on our list of 5 potential breakout prospects for 2025. And so make sure you're giving that a listen, but it's nice to see him come through with that in the breakout game. I'll tell you what I was a little underwhelmed about. I was a little underwhelmed by Carter Jensen behind the plate. And I was a little underwhelmed by Kansas City's defense all around.
A little sloppy on the base path and the defense.
It was a slop fest out there. It was just not clean baseball. And that's really not what you come to expect even from Royals minor leaguers. I mean, yes, minor league baseball is sloppier than Major League Baseball, just like Little League Baseball is sloppier than high school baseball or whatever. The higher you go up, the cleaner it gets. But the Royals kind of pride themselves on good base running, good defense, and those sorts of things. They didn't show it in that spring breakout game. Mike, the Royals had a winning week this week, so who stood out as your strong performer?
Vinny Pasquin, sexy. I'm wearing a jersey right now, actually. He had a really good week, and one of my big hopes, and I put this out on Threads, is it can be a different type of season if Vinny comes out hot, whereas in the past he's always kind of started slow. But if he comes out really swinging the bat well out of spring training and can help lift this offense with Jonathan India looking like he can be very good and maybe one of the 3 best baseball players in the league hitting right in front of you, then this team could have a huge, huge jump out of the gate. And I really would like that. He was 4 for 11 this week with 2 doubles, a home run, 2 RBI, 1 walk, and 1 K. And I can't remember. I don't think it was the home run at bat in the game against Cleveland. I think it was the one right before that. But it really was like vintage Vinny Pasquantino. Not the guy last year who they were like, oh, I want to be more aggressive. I don't like that from him. I want him to go back to what he did when he was coming up through the minors. And even in that first season when he was with the Royals, is patience. Not necessarily patience, but you're not swinging at stuff outside of the zone. You're not chasing. You're not being aggressive early in counts necessarily. Even you're seeing some pitches and waiting till you get a great one. And I really saw that and that at bat. And I think I've been seeing that more from him recently, which is how I like him to hit. And I hope that's really kind of what he falls back into. I think at times maybe last year or the year before, the Royals have encouraged him to be more aggressive, to be that run producer in the middle. But I think the best version of Vinny Pasquantino isn't necessarily that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Wrote about that today in the Substack as well. I think there's a lot that he can do to ensure that he's getting pitches that can maximize his power output. Because the only reason you can imagine they're like, hey, let's be aggressive, is they want to try and get him out early to his pull side, utilizing that power, and then getting the most out of what is probably only 55 grade raw power, maybe 60, but probably 55.
It's 55, yeah.
And then it's like, okay, that's great, that's fine. But you're now taking away the offensive profile where it's like, okay, you're not going to be a 35 home run guy, but you're going to be a really good on base guy. Notice that his walk rate has also fallen every year since 2022, right? Started out 2022 was something like 10%, 11%. It dropped down to 9.5% or something like that. Now it's like 7. It was 7.2 or something last year. You're taking away from that on base ability to try and get more power, but you're not really getting any more power. And it's like, what are you getting for that extra aggressiveness right now? I don't see anything. And
you're getting some sacrifice flies, and that's it.
Maybe you're getting some
aggressive early
flies.
In counts when you get a ball that's in the top half. So you swing, and that I understand. I understand if it's got a purpose and you're swinging early in a count because the pitch is in the upper half and you need to drive a guy in from third. I get it. Or it's on the inside and you need to move a guy from second to third. I understand there's a lot of situations that might make him be more aggressive. But his best, you just said it, his best ability is to wait for a pitch that he can maximize to the pull side so he can pull and put it out of the park. Or, we saw a lot of those laser doubles down the line in his first year that we haven't seen a lot of recently. So I agree. And they're going to try and pitch him away.
Yeah, they're going to try and pitch him away, but I hope he ends up showing a lot of patience this year so we can – I'd love a on base number in the 360, 370 range. And then, if he can give his usual 450 slugging, I think he'll be in great shape. My strong performer for this week is Nick Lofton. We talked about him sort of having a really hot start and then waning a little bit. Well, he's come back with another hot week this week. He was 5 for 12 this week with 2 doubles, 3 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Played all over the diamond. I saw a really strong throw from him, third to first. He had to kind of play it back as a third baseman and then make the throw. The throw, he obviously doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but I think he showed on that play it's strong enough to play third if they need him to. And because he was able to grab this guy from really deep at third. And so that was great to see as well. Looks like he's trying to put a strong case together that he deserves that last roster spot. Mike, what are your, it wasn't all greatness from everyone out there this week. You didn't write down the name of your week performer. You just put the stats in there. Who is this person? Mystery person.
Sorry, I got all in my emotions and forgot to write his name down. It's Maikel Garcia. I think the Royals kind of need Maikel Garcia. Or maybe put it this way. I think the Royals really want Maikel Garcia to do something offensively so that they can justify him getting at bats to be a backup center fielder if he can manage that. But 2 for 12, 0 extra base hits, 2 RBI and 3 runs because he did have 3 walks, but 6 strikeouts still. You can't consistently play putting up those kind of numbers. He's not producing anything offensively, really. And big worry if Maikel Garcia can be something of an offensive value to this team. We saw him with a sub 70 weighted runs created plus last year. And I haven't seen anything that says that's going to change. You talked about how he needs to pull the ball more to get into more of those power outcomes. He's just not doing that. It looks the exact same. Everything looks the same.
Mike, we had a coach a while back, many years ago, who had
many years ago
about what happens when you always do what you always did. How'd that saying go?
If you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got.
Yup. Of course, that is also axiomatically untrue because if conditions change, you'll get something different, but it doesn't matter. In this case, it's true.
Stop.
In this case, it's true. Anyway, my week performer for this week is the guy who's sort of making me feel a little bit concerned about the starting pitching, and that's Michael Wacha. He went 3 1/3 innings pitched, gave up 3 runs. Here's the concerning part: 7 hits in that 3 1/3. One of them was a home run. He also walked someone and struck out 4. He just didn't look very good. He wasn't locating well enough to keep guys off the changeup. It was not going great. They were finding too much barrel. He wasn't missing that many bats, honestly. The 4 strikeouts are a little deceptive. He just faced a ton of hitters, and some of them are bound to strike out. And so, it was one of those performances where I was like, well, we kind of need him to get back on it. Now, he's the type of guy who I think will really benefit from coming up north, playing in a little bit colder weather for a little while, and that sort of thing. I think it's going to really benefit him to get in a groove and get out of Arizona. But, wasn't a great week for him this week.
Well, and also he's a guy who kind of thrives on game plan, and they're not doing like tremendous scouting and game plan and all that sort of stuff down in spring training. That's what Waka needs, because a lot of the effectiveness that he has is the mixing of his pitches and the attacking guys' weaknesses and things like that. That's all fleshed out in a game plan. So I'm not really that worried about it, but we did just pay a guy a lot of money. I know that. Yeah, and so hopefully he turns it around here.
All right, Mike, I know you've been desperate to go ahead and sing this lyric for us that you've put on deck as your theme. What is your theme for this week?
I go to the one of the greatest American songwriter of all time, perhaps, Mr. Robert
Jason Isbell?
Zimmerman or Zimmer, something like that. No, not Jason Isbell, although I love him. Bob Dylan. We more affectionately call him Bob Dylan. But he wrote this song, but the only version I've ever heard actually performed is by not a super group, a group that got together to record Bob Dylan songs called the New Basement
I don't know.
Tapes.
They got some pretty big talent in that group.
Oh, yeah. Well, Johnny Depp is somehow oddly in that group.
I know, but other than him, they have actual very successful musicians.
Yes, that is true. But the song is called, is it called Kansas City or Going Back to Kansas? I think it's just called Kansas City. And it's, and I love you, dear, but just how long can I keep singing this same old song? I'm going back to Kansas City. Now you got to imagine this with I think it's Irish, Scottish, British, something, because the lead singer is the guy from Mumford and Sons, and he's from that
England.
part of the world.
He's
just from England? It's just England. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So an English accent. It's much better that way. But I'm ready for the real thing. I'm ready to come back to Kansas City and play some baseball. Yeah. And so I thought that was a great sentiment of it. First off, great song with the city we love in. And then also, I'm ready to get back home. I want to see some baseball. I want the games to matter, and I want to go out to the K.
Yep. Yeah. Who doesn't want that these days? Give me some sun and some baseball, please. I'm going with a song lyric this week as well from a young gentleman called David J. Matthews. I don't know if his middle initial is actually J or not.
I have no idea.
But he has a song that's essentially about just being extremely gluttonous. It's called Too Much. And because this week I got to watch a couple games on video and then didn't get to watch a couple others because they were just on radio, I'm just like, I want more. I need to watch more games, okay? And so every week I'm reminded of how angry I am that spring training games aren't all televised. And so my quote this week is actually just about wanting more. And it's, who do you think you're watching? Who do you think you need? Play for me, play more, 10 times in the same day. That's my lyric there. I want to see more Royals, so I'm ready for this regular season to get started too. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy. You already know that All in Physical Therapy turned our mother into the ultimate warrior with less fringe. But what you don't know is that Mom loved her experience there because of the personal attention she got from Tommy and the staff at All In. They guarantee a personalized one-on-one experience to suit the needs of patients recovering from total joint surgeries, sports injuries, or any kind of injury or pain.
I'm working on getting these hips back into Shakira territory.
Bum, 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 they don't lie. Bum, bum. All in Physical Therapy is owned and operated by Tommy Freevert with locations in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. But most importantly, they're in-network for nearly all insurance providers.
If you don't know, you got to be a network or you're headed for insolvency, which we all know that means.
You ain't got no damn money.
You got no damn money, you broke.
If you're a high school athlete recovering from injury or someone bouncing back with a brand new hip or knee, check out the best physical therapy in the KC Metro at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. The great thing about surprises is you can't anticipate them. If you could, they wouldn't be surprises. And yet, we're going to try to identify a few things that might come out of nowhere and impact the Royals 2025 in a game I'm calling Surprise, Surprise. While these
Stop singing.
Well, these may be surprises for the Jenner fan. Mike, you won't get that reference because you're not on TikTok, but that's a thing on TikTok.
Never
We
heard of it.
think there is just enough evidence to support these less than likely outcomes. Importantly, each of these things would have a huge impact, positive or negative, on the outcome of the Royals 2025 season. Mike, since you've won several paper mache competitions, you get to go first.
Yeah. Heck of a good guy at paper mache. It's a passion. It's a calling.
You should see his paper mache Mike Ditka. It's fucking. It's
yeah, Ditka. The mustache was easy, but the rest was hard. Okay, my first big surprise: Jonathan India is going to be the second on the team in weighted runs created plus behind Bobby Witt Jr. He's going to be ahead of Eddie Pasquantino. He's going to be ahead of Salvador Perez. He's going to be ahead of Michael Massey. Okay, he's going to be ahead of Dairon Blanco. Well, yeah, so is everything else, but. But yeah, that's my big surprise here. Jonathan India coming in scorching hot in spring training. This guy, scorching hot. He's got like a 480 on base and he's hit a couple dingers. His batting average is like 340. His OPS is over 1. Don't expect that to carry over, obviously, but I think he's got a chance. 1, because he's going to play a ton, and 2, because you're going to be hitting in front of Bobby Witt Jr. I think he's going to be able to do pretty well. And I think Kaufman's going to suit him.
Yeah, I think especially with that ballpark, he really has the opportunity. When I saw this one, I'm like, that's not going to happen. And I started thinking like, well, who's really going to like beat him definitively? Like, is that, I mean, honestly, I think the ballpark suits him well. I think he'll have a chance to get a little bit more power outcomes, triples and doubles and that sort of thing. I think there are also 2 ways of looking at this, right? Like, there's a way of looking at it that's like, oh, woof, if Jonathan India is second on your team in weighted runs created plus, you're in trouble, right? Like, that's one way to look at it, right? And then another way is he just has a really good year. He's sort of 4th year in Major League Baseball, grown, from past experiences, progressed and that sort of thing. And then the ballpark suits him and he's hitting in front of Bobby Witt Jr. All that. There's a way in which this is a good thing as well if he comes in second, rather than, oh no, our first baseman didn't beat out Jonathan India in offensive production. Oh no, Salvador Perez didn't beat out Jonathan in offensive production.
Well, if you think about it, those are really the only 2 guys that can do it, right? I mean, unless Michael Massey just has a breakout.
Massey could have a breakout. I have a little surprise coming from you later. Who knows? Who knows who could do it? MJ Melendez.
I like mine.
MJ Melendez's new swing plays, and he's got a big breakout. You never know. My first surprise that could be coming down the pipe. One or both of Waka and Lugo face big regression. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility, and I don't think fans are really prepared to see it happen. To see one or both of those guys post an ERA in the low 4s this year or something like that, or even 4.5, that looks wildly different from, because remember, Lugo didn't just have a good season last year. He finished second in the Cy Young voting. He had a 3 ERA. He threw over 200 innings. He was amazing last year. Lugo, Waka, it's not outside the realm of possibility that this year it looks a lot more like they're in their mid-30s.
Yeah, and I actually almost put something very similar to this because of that. I did like kind of you might think of it as the inverse of the more positive side. I said I was going to put Chris Bubich might lead this team in ERA.
He might,
because, and my real thinking there was that Lugo and Waka are due for some regression. They both can give up pretty good exit velocities and do rely on good defense. I don't know if this defense this year is going to be as good as it has been in the past because of guys that you have to kind of play offensively. So yeah, I don't know. I think though, no matter what, I feel like the team is still probably getting what they wanted out of them when they signed them, which is consistency and competent pitching. It's not going to be 200 innings in a 3 ERA, but even if it's 4 and you're not giving up 8 runs in the first every 3 starts, I think the Royals would be okay with that. Keep them in ball games, give them a chance to win, and I think Waka and Lugo are doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah, notice I said, they could have as much as a 4 or 5 ERA, but you don't hear me going up to like 5.5. I'm not like, okay, these guys could.
Which the Royals have done.
Okay? Oh, they've run out.
2 years ago, Brady Singer threw a 5.2 ERA or whatever.
Come on. We all remember Kyle Davies. We all remember Luke Hochshafer as a starter.
Brad Keller.
All remember Brad Keller in some of his favorite years. We get it. Like, so yeah. If they end up, putting up a year of 4.13 or something like that, I don't think the Royals will be mad, but fans, don't be surprised if it happens. Mike, what's your second surprise for us?
Big surprise here. This one I think is maybe less of a surprise, but
this is not a surprise. That's my. I know.
I think it's maybe less of a surprise, but I wanted to talk about how some circumstances set up well for this. Cole Reagans wins the Cy Young Award. Okay, which by the way is always a surprise. He's definitely not going to be the betting favorite or anything.
He's not the favorite. I think he's the second favorite though.
He might be. But it's still the Cy Young. It's not negative. I mean, it's not like the odds are minus 100 or minus 110 or something like that. He's going to be plus 375, plus 400 to win it.
Check out Mike's new betting podcast. He's going to have a betting segment on the weekly.
I am going to do a little betting segment on the weekly Substack if you're a person that likes to put the dough down on the games. But yeah, I here's why I like it. One, I think the starters in the National League are much more top heavy. I think there's going to be a lot more competition for the National League Cy Young than there will be for the American League Cy Young. Yeah, who's the guy? I'm blanking on his name now. Who's the guy that just went? Tarek Skubal, obviously, he's the one who won last year unanimously. But who's the guy? Garrett Cole just went down for the Yankees, so there's a guy that's out of the running. You got Framber Valdez, he's good, but yeah, Lugo finished ahead of him last year, Cole Reagans, but yeah, Reagans I think could take the Cy Young and Skubal might not even be on Detroit. Who knows if they're in it? Maybe they trade him or not in it anymore. Maybe they trade him away. I don't know. But I like to see that. If that happens, so huge for the Royals to have that anchor at the top of the rotation.
Skubal also has a significant injury history, and so it's not outside the realm of possibility that he gets hurt or something like that. But
not that Reagans has no injury history.
That's true. But to me, this is not even a surprise. He finished fourth last year. He's second. I mean, it would be a surprise if he finishes outside the top five. That would be more of a surprise, I think, to some people. And he does. Although, if you're thinking about it in terms of betting odds, nobody is ever really a good odds-on favorite to win the Cy Young. It's always somewhat of a long shot if anybody wins. And so, who knows? Maybe he'll come out of left field and do the thing everyone expects him to do. Mike, I'm going to tell you my second surprise right now. Hunter, this one surprised me when I thought of it.
I'm surprised you put this,
but it does make sense to some degree. Hunter Renfroe puts up a weighted runs created plus over 100 would be the surprise, right?
If that happens, think about how good that would be for this team.
Oh, it'd be great. I've been thinking about it. And what's interesting is, so Hunter Renfroe had a 92 weighted runs created plus last year, right? Which isn't over 100, but it's only 8% less than 100. It's better than anybody else in the outfield. And I looked at some of the numbers from this spring training. Obviously, he's having a good spring training. His OPS is over 1,000. But I looked at some of the secondary numbers. His bat speed right now, or for spring training, is on par with Bobby Witt Jr.'s from last year.
So when they first started coming out with that, he kind of always had okay bat speed.
He did. He's improved it even more.
Translate though.
Okay. It doesn't necessarily. He's improved it even more. He's getting a lot of his hard hit rate is very high in the spring. All these different things that you would want to see from somebody. I'm just saying it's not outside the realm of possibility that a guy who, one, looks like he's still going to get a significant amount of playing time, and two, has had offensive success in the past, might find the fountain of youth for a year or something like that. That's not outside the realm of possibility, especially because now he's on a contract year again, right? He's got to go out there and make his dough again. And so we'll see how that turns out. I'm not putting money on it or anything, but don't be surprised if it happens. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Phoenix has all of our favorite things: year-round golf, year-round baseball, and Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Whether you want to buy your dream retirement home or just stay a while and catch spring training, Eric can help you find the perfect spot. We've known him for 30 years and trust him far more than we even trust each other.
Mark lost all trust in me when I sold all his clothes to that old woman on Craigslist that one day.
Eric
she said it fit real good in the hips.
I mean, I am a hippie gal. Eric does long-term rentals for the snowbird crowd and home sales and purchases for those who want to stay a while longer. Are you a baseball player or parent who needs a place in the Phoenix area? Eric will find you the perfect spot fast. You want to spend your day shanking golf balls into the great beyond? Eric knows the golf scene like Mike knows how to entice Craigslist people to buy used underwear. Find Eric online.
Convincing.
They were down immediately. Find Eric online at ericoxer.com. If you can figure out how to spell his name, it's ERICK. AUXIER.com. Or just shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Even if you're just curious about what he can do for you, he's 100% no pressure, one of the best people we know.
And he buys all his underwear brand new.
This week marks the end of Cactus League play as the Royals square off against the Diamondbacks, Giants, Reds, Mariners, A's, and Rangers. They'll have an off day on Tuesday and break camp Saturday before heading to Arlington, Texas for a 2-game exhibition series with the Rangers. They love playing the Rangers. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the front office connection. I don't know. After that, Mike, real baseball starts. What do you want to see from the boys in blue as they round out Cactus League play?
Well, they love playing the Rangers because they share the stadium with them. You dumb.
Yeah, I know. Well, that too. But they don't got to go to
Arlington
to play
they
an
don't have to go to
exhibition
Globe
series.
Life. Although, I mean, crap, is that the closest? Chicago, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, what was your question? I forgot. Oh, what do you want to see from the boys? Oh, what do I want to see with them? First and foremost, what we talked about at the very beginning, the most important thing in spring training, we want to see health. I want to get through this next week and a half of exhibition games and everybody's healthy. If Bobby Witt Jr. gets hit with another baseball, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. I want to see Vinny stay hot because I think it's going to be key to a good start. And then I want to see Michael and MJ show something so that we feel comfortable playing them at least in some sort of rotational capacity.
Yeah. MJ, Michael, big keys to the season. Vinny also. And people don't talk about Vinny like he's a big key to the season, but he really, really is.
When you only have 4 guys you can really count on for offense, They all have to perform.
Yeah, that's rough, in my mind. That's why I'm watching Bobby Witt Jr. to make sure he's good to go from that hit by pitch. And also, I don't feel like he's ever really gotten into a groove during spring training so far. And I'm waiting for him to look like Bobby Witt Jr. again, honestly. And so now, obviously, when the regular season starts, everything starts over. But I'd like to see him if he's going to be half of their offensive value or half of their position player value. He's really going to have to, put up another great year. Sadly, I hate putting that kind of pressure on a guy to be go out and have another 10-win season. But the Royals might need him to. So. Mike, what do you think the guys vying for the last couple roster spots? Because that's what really matters in these last week or so is who's going to take hold of those last couple of roster spots. What do you think that those guys need to do? The Biggios, the Loftons, the Castros, the Weimers. What do they got to do to solidify their spot on the roster?
I think Biggio just needs to show that he can contain the strikeouts a little bit and, give something offensively from the left side there. He needs to kind of find a role, if you will, a defined role. Lofton has to show that he can be consistent, put together a good week this week, do it again this coming up week. And I think maybe that gives you a shot to beat out Castro. I think for Weimer, I really think it has less to do with him and more to do with what Michael Garcia shows and what Dairon Blanco shows. And if the Royals feel comfortable playing those guys in center field on some sort of rotational basis. And I don't know what we're going to get there. I honestly don't. That'll be very interesting to me. I don't think Weimer's ready to play Major League Baseball consistently. I don't know if the Royals love Blanco playing center field. I think they would be okay with him somewhat rotationally if they thought he could, play, above average, maybe even average center field. But I don't think they think he can.
Yeah, I think they're pretty sold that he can't play center field very well.
And who knows how the Achilles thing affects that.
That's true. And who knows, it's going to be tough because obviously Blanco can't be sent down, I don't think. Weimer can, and Garcia, they won't send him down either way. And so you're stuck in this thing that's they'll have more data on Garcia playing center field than I do. I've seen some good plays from him out there. I've seen some not great plays from him out there. And so it's do you really trust him? Guy who's never played an inning in Major League Baseball, that counts in center field. Do you trust him out there? That's tough for such an important position. Weimer, can play out there. Does he look great against Major League pitching? He does not. But has he drawn quite a few walks this spring? He has. So, We'll see. I think Lofton does have to keep putting charges into balls and walking. I think the walking is what they're looking at and saying, ooh, we like these plate appearances. We like the fact that he could be an on-base option if he keeps walking this way and that sort of thing. I think they might be convincing themselves maybe that Lofton can give an offensive contribution, which really matters. Mike, do you think we're going to start to see some movement of guys on the Royals 40-man who don't have options, can't be sent down, that sort of thing, but also aren't going to make the team?
I mean, I assume so, right? You'd rather get something for them than nothing. I don't expect them to get much for those guys, but even cash is something, or lottery ticket kind of guys that are in similar situations on other teams. That's what you kind of look for there, and you get just kind of new home candidates. But
in this case, they would have to have options because they can't go down,
dang,
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So you're probably just not getting much of anything. I don't know what you're doing. So
yeah, you're going to try and get whatever you can. This is guys like Nick Prado, Nelson Velasquez, Chris Stratton, who
so they need to be traded, and they got to go onto a major league roster. Is that correct?
I mean,
because they don't have any options for them either. So, a lot of these guys are probably getting released. Yeah. Maybe Stratton doesn't, if somebody thinks he can do something in a bullpen like he did 2 years ago, maybe. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
And here's the thing, none of them showed out really in spring training. And so it's not like some team might take a chance that they can, that Nick Prado's found it and say like, well, we have nothing in first base anyway. Let's see what he's got. That didn't happen. So we'll see. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just a Bit Outside segment where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, you are always an educator in your heart. So tell me what you're talking about this week.
I saw a story 2 days ago that kind of sparked something in my mind about science. And so I wanted to do science is awesome. That's what I've been thinking about.
Science.
And science is awesome. Thank you, Bill Nye, for inventing it. But it's kind of like the dichotomy that we're seeing right now in that you have this horrible outbreak of measles in Texas. It's now spreading to other states like New Mexico and Oklahoma, where you have a group of people who, that this is kind of perpetuated by not believing in science, right? And I'm not going to get into like a vaccination debate or soapbox thing here because overall I do feel bad.
I will if you want me to, but I won't.
But I mean, I do feel bad for parents who get deceived and things like that. But on the flip side of that, I read this story 2 days ago where they have likely cured sickle cell anemia. Yes. And the first man to ever be cured for it, I think, was in New York City. And it just was confirmed this last week.
Mass produce that shit.
And so that's amazing. That is unbelievable. We do so many things with science that I would have never thought possible many years ago. And so just to see not just in health science either, computer technology, energy, all these types of things are unbelievable. And I think taking a minute to stop and marvel at it is okay and good. And we need people out there making sure that we've got good science continuing and the information is being spread about it.
Yeah. And I think when you're marveling at it, also maybe find some time to be humble in the face of it in some ways. Like, I think in terms of like, science is an enormous body of knowledge, even little segments within this, like environmental science or, computer science or whatever. Each of these is a huge body of knowledge built up over decades and decades, sometimes centuries of work by people. And it's okay to sit there in the face of that and say like, wow, I don't understand a lot about that, but I'm going to try my best to understand what I can, and when I can't, I'm just going to listen to the people who know what they're talking about. Like,
well, exactly.
I'm not one
if I don't understand it, it doesn't mean I'm not going to believe it.
Right. Like, I'm going to listen to somebody who's been studying this their whole life. I'm going to listen to this group of people, who have been working on something or who have picked up the ball from like decades worth of people, centuries.
It's people standing on shoulders, standing on shoulders, standing on shoulders is what it is.
It's amazing. It's amazing. That's how sickle cell anemia gets cured. Okay. Yeah. Like it's amazing. Right. And so, that's wonderful to see. Hopefully people wise up a little bit and we can stop this measles outbreak, but we'll see. I'm talking about something that I would have never cared about.
Pretty
when I was
mundane,
younger.
not science.
It's not hot and like controversial like science, I guess. Oh,
sure?
It's so sad to say. But it's important to me, and it never would have been important to me when I was a kid because I never even would have noticed it. But as I get older, stuff that seems mundane is now seeming much more important to me. And so I want to talk about sidewalks, people. They are so important to like the movability and mobility of a neighborhood and a city and things like that. And I don't want us to take them for granted because there are neighborhoods that don't have them. And as a result of that, you have places where it's like, it's harder for kids to like walk around their neighborhood or go play and things like that. It's harder for, anybody to go to that bus stop that's 2 blocks away because they don't have a safe way to walk there. Like that's what was happening near my house up until very recently, because they're just now, I live basically on I'm not going to tell you exactly, but I live at an intersection.
Swat him. Somebody swat this man.
I live in an intersection near a fairly busy intersection, not super busy, but fairly busy. And there was a big main road going this way that doesn't have any sidewalk on either side of it. And lots of people want to walk down this because it's kind of a main thoroughfare, right? So sometimes I'll just see people like literally just walking down the street, middle of the street, they're walking. And I'm like, this is so dangerous because people drive so fast on this road. About 2 months ago, I got a leaflet that was like, here's our plan for this street. We're going to put a sidewalk in, knock it down to 3 lanes. And I'm like, yes. And they are about to complete that sidewalk. That sidewalk is going to open up entirely new stuff for me and my partner, as we can now just walk over to it and walk down into this area that has a lot more stuff in it. Breweries, bars, other places to get alcohol. No, they have
just like places you can buy booze and you don't even drink.
They have multiple restaurants and just cool places down here. And we can't really access it on foot. We have to drive there now, but it's less than a mile from our house, right? Like, but there's no safe way to walk there. And so now there will be a safe way to walk there. It's like opening up a whole new world for us. We're going to have it all summer. It's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. But think about how like community infrastructure like that really changes the way people experience where they live.
Well, and as you know, the place where I live has sidewalks everywhere, extremely walkable. And we take huge advantage of that. I go on, 3 or 4 walks a week when the weather's okay with my son or my dog or both or my wife and everybody else. So, that was one of the things my wife wanted for her birthday. Let's go on a family walk. And so we do it. That's very easy here.
It's wild.
But I live in the burbs.
It's wild to me because where I live is so much more densely populated than where you live.
Yeah, logically makes no sense.
And yet it's way less walkable. And it's like, I don't get that. Like, and so, yeah, luckily it's improving to some degree, and I really appreciate that. That's all we have for you this week. Thank you for joining us here at Royals Weekly, or on Royals Weekly, presented by Bet Online. We will be back next Monday with another regular episode, but we'll be back on Thursday for our midweek Substack subscribers. So make sure you're subscribing to that Substack. It's going to be really dope, I have a feeling. Mike's going to be back this week, so I don't have to just entertain myself. And so, until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.